So I didn't plan on starting this way, but fun thing, Ben Rogers, when I moved up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I was kind of a nerdy kid, and I didn't know anything about sports. And so I would be going to lunch with a lot of my coworkers and friends, and I was like, I gotta listen to Ben and Skin or one of these. So I was listening to Ben and Skin all the time, driving around. I was like, please, just let me be cool. I want to be able to talk about sports so bad at lunch with everyone. So so thank you, Ben Rogers, for that. Appreciate it. My name is Ryan Rijken, and I am the founder of Southpaw Media. So we are a CRM marketing strategy agency. So email marketing, SMS, personalized customer journeys. If you get emails and SMS that you don't want, you're welcome. I'm also the founder of the 1024 Project. And the 1024 Project, our vision is to help reframe the way people think about work. Who we are is more important than what we do. And so we coach and consult leaders and businesses on how can you better engage your team, your culture, how can you readjust what the balance in your life looks like when we really think about work. And so when I was talking to Rob initially about speaking, I was like, hey, I got a couple ideas I think I could do. And he said, just share a little bit of your story. That's the first thing, best thing you can do. And so, I'm a husband, a father of 3 boys. I live up in Salina. But really from a business standpoint, my story starts coming out of high school. I was trying to decide which path I should take as I moved into my professional journey. I was a drummer. I was in a bunch of bands, and I thought, path 1 is I'm gonna be this really great drummer. And my band's gonna make it. We're gonna top the charts. It's gonna be awesome. Or my backup plan was I was gonna go to college, and I was going to get a degree in philosophy, psychology, and then try to transition into Columbia Law School, be a lawyer. Very different paths. So ultimately, I left high school, and naturally, I went directly into ministry, because that's exactly where I had planned on winding up. So I moved up to the Dallas area, and I was a worship and young adults pastor for about 6 years, full-time, and then a young adults pastor and worship pastor for another 10 after that, part-time. But in 2010, I had this opportunity. I was kind of looking to transition in terms of what I was doing, and a guy at church came, and he said, hey, you've got a great nose for marketing, a great nose for communication. There's this new kind of growing industry called marketing automation. I'm starting an agency. Do you want to come kind of work with me? And I thought, man, if I can afford the payment of my PT Cruiser and have enough money to ask a girl out simultaneously, that's going to be a win. Granted, I was driving a PT Cruiser, so the girl part was questionable. But I said, yeah, let's talk about it. So we went to a John Mayer concert together. Didn't know it was my job interview, but it was. Played out really well. And so I moved into the marketing automation space, and I've been in that space now for about 15 years, from small startup agencies to mom and pop shops, all the way to working for Oracle and Intuit, and most recently, working in higher education. So through all that, through being a husband and a father, through being somebody who's been a pastor, been in ministry, and somebody who has worked as a marketer for a long period of time, there's certain themes that have come up consistently over and over again. And one of those themes for me has been trust, this concept of trust. And all of us here have some familiarity with trust. There's a lot of great business thinkers, speakers, authors that talk about trust. Simon Sinek, he talks about trust, how it's won in drops, but it's lost in buckets. There's Brené Brown, the famous researcher, and she's a great author and speaker. If you're not familiar with her work, she's got something called BRAVING. It's an acronym for the anatomy of what trust is, and she's got this great content built out around that. And then if you lead or work with the team at all, you might be familiar with Patrick Lencioni. He's the founder of the Table Group. He wrote the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and the first dysfunction of a team is the lack of trust. Trust is the foundation. And so there's tons and tons of great content already about trust, which I would encourage you to go look for, because it is important for all of us. We lead businesses, teams, in our homes. Trust is a foundational element that we should consistently be growing in. But over the years, one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of the discussion around trust is in how we earn it. We treat it like a currency, and we think about how can I get more of it? How can I collect it? In the past couple of years, as I've led my teams, and I've kind of gone through that, one of the things that I've been wrestling with is trust. If we're going to treat it like a currency, that means that there has to be some exchange. And trust is not just something we earn, it's something that we give. It's not just something we earn, it's something we give. And so I've been trying to think about what does that mean, giving trust? What does that look like? How can I simplify that? And then earlier this year, my wife and I were celebrating 10 years of marriage, and we're taking our first European vacation. We're in Amsterdam, I have my kids, my parents are there, and I think on day 2, we're going on a canal tour through the waters of Amsterdam. It's fantastic. We have this open air boat, and there's snacks and stroopwafels and drinks, and it's beautiful out. The weather's like not hot, but it's not too cold. And we have this guy, Captain Ono, this dude in this big fluffy white jacket. He's hilarious. He's pointing out all the different sites. And about halfway through this tour, Captain Ono pulls my 8-year-old up, Maximilian. He says, "Max, come up here. Come drive the boat." I'm like, this is cool. What a great core memory for an 8-year-old. You're overseas, you get to drive a boat. Who'd have thought? Not me. And so he lets him drive for a moment. We're all kind of observing, and he lets him drive for another minute, and then Ono goes and sits down, and we think, oh no. What's gonna happen now? And we start to come across some bridges, and we have to go under these bridges, and it's like, which direction do we go? There's other tours going on, there's other boats, there's houseboats on the side. And he's just like, "Max," he's like, "you got it." He goes, "See that bridge? If you see the shadows, just keep it between the shadows." Max is guiding it through the shadows, and then we're coming up on a turn, and Ono stands up, and he's like, "Hey, just kind of go wide." He's radioing to other people in Dutch, probably telling them, "Hey, watch out, we're coming, there's this kid." And I remember there were about 10 other people on the boat outside of my family, and at first it's fun, right? It's like a kid driving a boat. After a while, you're like, kids driving a boat. And so there was a point where Ono looked at everybody, and he's sitting down, and he says, "Hey, it's okay. You have to give trust to earn trust. You have to give trust to earn trust." And I remember phone out, writing down, I'm like, that's it. That's this concept that I've been wrestling with. We have this hesitation to give trust. And why? Why as leaders do we have this hesitation to give trust? I think if we're honest, we probably have good reasons, right? How many of us have worked with somebody difficult? They're like, "I don't trust you, we're the lick," right? We've all had those people. On the front of this, I told you like kind of the progression of my career and how I got where I was, but if I'm honest, I was laid off 3 times in the series of those things. I'm married and I have 3 boys, and I love my family, but I've had relationships that went sideways and kind of wrecked me a little bit. And I've been a pastor for a long time, and I've been involved with various churches and ministries, and if I'm real, some of them had spiritually manipulative leaders, and they weren't great. And I know in this room, a lot of us have had those shared experiences. People who betrayed us, people who we trusted, could even be family members, relatives, parents, but they let us down in some way. And what I realize is our inability to give trust a lot of times actually says more about us than it does about them. When we think about earning trust, it's easy to think about because sometimes it seems formulaic. And maybe easy is not the right word, but it's simplified. It seems formulaic. If I show up on time, if I bring my best, if I'm excellent, if I'm funny, if I show up this way, then I should be able to earn trust with these people. And if I don't, that's a them thing, that's not a me thing. But when it comes to giving trust, it says more about us, usually, than it does about them. because giving trust is an extension of ourself. And we have to work through all the years of things that have kind of piled on inside of us, and we've built these walls. And some of these walls are justified. They're built on this foundation of fear. We don't want to get hurt again. But that fear and those walls, even though they're good in some senses, they're meant to protect you. But they will never move you forward. They will not move your business forward. They will not move your leadership forward. They will not move your teams forward. They will not move your family forward. They will keep you in a place of protection. You see, that fear will protect you, but hope will propel you. And every time you choose, you make the conscious decision to trust someone and put trust out there, you are sowing a seed of hope for yourself and in that person. And that does not come easy, but it's the right thing to do in order to move in the direction that you need to move in. How many of you have watched The Last Dance on Netflix, right? Michael Jordan documentary. I'm going to plant a flag right here and let you know Michael Jordan is the GOAT, okay? Thank you. So if you're a LeBron person, God bless you, you're wrong. But, okay, Michael Jordan is the GOAT. And if you watch The Last Dance, there's a scene where Michael Jordan's in the huddle. It's in the 97 finals, game 6. He's looking over at Steve Kerr. He says, Steve, be ready. And Steve goes, I'll be there, I'll be ready. Game goes on. Michael Jordan gets the ball. He's double teamed, right? Kicks it out to Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr gets the ball, hits the game-winning shot. Okay, it's the 5th championship for Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's the GOAT. I like to think that I'm good at what I do. I ain't the GOAT. Y'all are probably pretty good at what you do. I'd be willing to bet most of y'all aren't the GOAT at it, though. That's just statistics. But if Michael Jordan is the GOAT, and he has to choose to trust his teammate to make the big shot, he has to give trust. How much more do we need to learn to give trust away in the biggest moments? If we trust, when we choose to trust, we are choosing to multiply our impact. That's what we're choosing to do. Michael Jordan gets 6 championships, but he did it because he learned how to trust his teammates, even though he knew he was the best one around. So practically, what are some things that we can do? You say, all right, cool, we need to give trust away. It's a struggle. What do we need to do? 3 ways that I think we can practice giving trust and becoming a trust catalyst. The first is this. Start small. I understand when I'm talking about giving trust away, it's a pretty blanket statement. I'm not saying you should go find somebody off the street and have them watch your kids. All right, let's use wisdom. Let's use wisdom now, reel it in. But you can start small. And one of the ways I like to go about it is start with tasks, grow to outcomes. Start with tasks, grow to outcomes. For my team, what does that look like? I might have somebody and I say, hey, we have a client. We need to design a 7-touch campaign to re-engage their customers. Over 30 days, can you design these different channels, these different things? Implement it, make sure the content is only like this. Here's what our CTAs are. Come back, show me, let's talk through how to do that. That's a task, that's great. But eventually if somebody shows me that they can do that over and over and over again, and I know that they're learning it, what I want to do is I'm going to come back and say, hey, you did a great job. We have a client that's losing 20% of their business for some reason. We want to figure out how to build a campaign that's going to do that. I trust you to figure it out. How can we re-engage those? I'm going to trust you with the outcome of this thing. So start with tasks, grow to outcome. You know what? I'll even use it as an example as a parent, right? I've got an 8-year-old right now trying to get him to do stuff. Hey, feed the dog. That's a task. Hey, make sure the dog doesn't go hungry. That's an outcome. And they get to choose kind of when and how to go about doing something. That's trusting them and giving them freedom to do it. The second thing that we can do to try and give trust out is we can be people who look for hidden potential. Look for the hidden potential. When I was 12, my mom, we moved from Hawaii to Maryland. My mom was trying to figure out how to get me engaged. She signs me up in 7th grade to play percussion. At the same time, we're going to this small military chapel, and she tells the worship leader, yeah, my son knows how to play drums. Totally oversold that. Had not sat behind a drum set in my life at that point. I was at Triangle, about to graduate to the bass drum, and that's where I was at. So I was like, thanks, Mom. But I remember she told the worship leader's name at the time. His name was Jay Thompson. And he was such a gracious guy. He would let me come on Thursday nights and practice with the worship team and just struggle through it. And my parents, my mom and my dad, we're living in military housing, just paper-thin walls. I know the neighbors, man, must have the most gracious neighbors. No, I don't know what kind of secret conversations my parents were having with them, but I just had this little radio drum set upstairs, and I would come home from school, and I would just go to town. And I know that for Jay and for my parents, that had to be such a miserable season to go through for a little while, watching me go through it. But learning to play drums, over time, I got pretty good at it. And not only that, it was a thing that taught me how to be part of a team. It helped me keep linked into my faith. It helped me gain some of the best friends I've had in the world. It was a fantastic experience, and when I look back on it, what I realize is that Jay Thompson, my mom, my dad, they could hear music where other people could only hear noise. So for the people around you, where can you hear music where other people only hear noise? And the third thing you can do, if you want to start to lean into trust, and Dr. Chan talked about this earlier, I love, Ben Rogers talked about it, the concept of failure. Create space for failure. And this is kind of two parts. One is this: openly talk about your failures. Vulnerability breeds vulnerability. I tell my teams all the time about the things that I've gotten wrong. I deleted 30,000 contacts out of somebody's database once. Whew, yeah, see, y'all know. That sucks, right? It was not my finest day. The first thing I did when I started a marketing agency, I was trying to help build a website. I shrunk all the graphics by 80%. Why? I don't know. Felt like a good idea at the time. Wasn't. But there we are, all right? We all fail at things. Openly talk about yours. Share yours. And the second part of that is create space for failure. You know what the hardest part about trusting is? They're going to get it wrong. It's not always going to go right. You're going to trust people, and they're going to let you down. They will fail at things. That's okay. We're human. We all fail at things. But we need to create that space so that they can fail in a safe environment. When we can be open about our failures and we can create space for that failure, we create the psychological safety that our teams need to be their most excellent selves. So, 3 things. Start small, look for hidden potential, create space for failure. And I'll close with this. I think a lot about Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. The more I learn about him, the older I get, the more his legend grows for me, because I think he's just such an excellent example of just a person and somebody with impact. And he used to do this thing where he would have people close their eyes for a minute and think about everybody who loved them into being. So I'm going to borrow from that for a second. I'm going to say, let's close our eyes for 15 seconds. And I want you to think about who gave you trust when you didn't deserve it? Who gave you that chance? Who extended trust to you before you had necessarily maybe earned it? And then I want you to think about who in your life right now, whether they work for you or somebody you know, or a friend, or your kids. But who have you not been trusting where maybe you need to say, I'm going to extend a little more trust and decide, make the conscious decision to trust. Last thing, if you look up here on the screen, I have a QR code. I designed this book for all of us. This is something called Loaded Questions. Dr. Chan talked about the importance of questions. These are 21 questions that have helped reframe my life personally. I use some of these with my team to help them think. So there's a short form, just fill it out. But this is 21 questions along with stories that you can kind of take and chew on and think about where you're at in life, what's fulfilling for you. And our goal, once again, the 1024 Project, we're just trying to figure out how we can help you be who you are, who God intended you to be, and kind of rebalance the way you work. So thank you all so much. Thank you for trusting me with your time.
Come over here. Oh, hey. Yeah,
Sure.
We'll have a seat right here.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to just follow up too and just let everybody know all the resources that we're getting today, notes, things like this, the loaded questions, all that. We're going to send an email out to everybody that's here later in the week, and we'll make sure that you guys have all that. So if you missed a QR code or if something happened today, you missed something from earlier, we're going to be sending all those resources out to everyone in attendance as well. But can we put our hands together one more time? Just thank Ryan for being here. Thanks, Ryan. A couple questions. And there's a QR code on screen too, so if you want to send a question to, we have a team that's kind of filtering through those and sending them in. But just to get us started, how do you give trust when you've been burned by giving trust in the past? How do you kind of go back to the well on that and say, I'm gonna do this again?
It's a decision. Ultimately, and I think this is part of what I was wrestling with personally for a long time, is I have the spiritual gift of skepticism. And so that gift at times, I like to think has served me well. But at other times, what I've realized is there are people who've shown up time and time and time and time again, and it's a me issue where I'm kind of holding back. Ultimately, trust is a choice at any level, right? Sometimes it feels easier to make that choice because it seems like the return's going to be, is going to come back well, but sometimes it's not. And so you have to choose, or else you will always be trapped in the hurt of that last experience. And if you want to be free of the hurt of that last experience of whatever, the only way to do that is to gain a new experience. And you have to choose to trust and gain that experience. And once you have enough positive ones, you realize they're all not going to be positive, but it's at least enough that I can come back and get some, right? There's going to be return.
Can I just to follow up with that? How do you, or what would your recommendation be, your best practice for addressing gaps in trust when that's been breached, or hey, someone's failed, or whatever, however you would say that? But how do you kind of go to that person or go to that relationship and say, hey, here, we've got a trust gap here. How do we fill this back up?
Yeah, I think honest conversation is huge. Sometimes you just call a spade and say, I'm having a hard time trusting. And so you have to acknowledge it with someone. In a work environment, I know for me I kind of operate in two levels with my teams. And one of those is this: I trusted you with something and it's skills-based. So I asked you to do something, you didn't do it, or the quality of your work did not meet the standards I'm expecting, and so I don't know if I can necessarily trust you to do these things. That's skills-based. My responsibility as a leader in a lot of those, I feel, is to try and figure out how can I address those skill gaps and empower this person wherever they're at so that they're the best version of themselves. But the second tier of that is if it's a character thing, right? If it's a character thing, we'll address it once. Hey, you lied about something, I caught you in it. Hey, I had somebody that was working for me last year, was like, hey, I'm sick, I did this. And then this individual was like showing up at midnight book signings, right? And I was like, you're not really sick, right? Like, that's a character thing. If it's a character thing, I'll give you an opportunity to do it once, and we're gonna address it and talk about it. But then character things are much harder to correct. And at that point, not to be Dr. Sam Chan and to be like, hey, it's time to get out, So that's kind of how I address those things.
What's the correlation between someone earning trust and leaders clearly communicating expectations?
What's the correlation? I think the correlation, if you're a leader and you're choosing to give trust, you have to clearly set I think clearly setting expectations is a necessity in and of itself. If you're giving trust but you don't clearly set expectations and they don't do what you're expecting, that's a failure on your part, not a failure on their part. And so there is a correlation where you need to correctly set those expectations, because then somebody can meet and or exceed, right? We don't give people the opportunity to rise to the occasion if we don't really extend that out. And so, but you have to clearly communicate the expectations there. There is a correlation.
That's great. Hey, can we, one more time, can we just put our hands together and just thank Ryan for being here? Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks, man.
That was awesome.
Yeah.